Good evening. I'm Professor Bauer, and tonight we're going to be looking at the fine art of writing well, writing good, as I heard on a website, in the DU ICT program. We're going to focus on ICT 4010, which is the course you're all enrolled in, but we're going to pull the lens back a little bit and focus on how well I should be writing in all my classes, why it's important, and then are there some shortcuts, dear Professor Bauer, that you can share with me so that I don't feel like I'm majoring in English and reading a 550-page, Turabian, Chicago Manual of Style, and all these other sorts of things. So, can we do this in a way that's short, succinct, and helpful? And I promise to you that's what we're going to do. Effective writing is a combination of being able to scaffold, in other words, put a structure around your assignments. How do you decode what the assignment is, especially if it's a writing assignment? How to write well, is the mechanics of writing well, and doing the infamous format, grammar, style check. And I know you're thinking already, I didn't have this growing up. English is not my first language. All right, and so, si voy a hablar en español, nunca entiende lo que hablamos, okay? In other words, if I start speaking in a language, and boy, I always tell people, no puedo hablar español sino panameño. I grew up in Panama, and Panamanian Spanish is like casi Spanish. It's close enough. But the verb tense doesn't matter. It's singular, plural, and active, passive. None of that stuff matters. It's casi, it's enough. But when you're in a graduate school like this one, and when you're embarking on a career like you're embarking on, you got to communicate. And I'm going to show you some tools that are free, that are electronic. Some are premium if you want to buy them, but some are not. That can help you, because few of us have servants with PhDs in English who can come and automatically proofread all of our papers and fix them. Now, if you have someone that you're in a serious romantic relationship with who has those skills, I would recommend you marry them. I would, right now, over the weekend, go to Vegas. We'll let you submit your paper on Monday morning or something, all right? But just keep that in mind. So we'll be a little humorous, but I want to be deadly serious about the need to be good writers. Effective writers are in great need in our world today. So we're going to look at what that means, how to scaffold the writing assignment, how to go from good to great in editing, or from average to lousy in not editing, all right? And then some class resources that I've posted for writing and before you submit your papers, and then some other information that you might find helpful if you want to. No one has the time to read while they're working on an advanced degree, which is really tragic, because this is why I took time to learn, and we rarely read about how to write better. I'm going to recommend several very small books. And I'm going to give you actually the first chapter of one that I think you'll find helpful. You may not be able to write well. I am sorry. For that is a loss in your toolbox. All right? Someone whose responsibility to teach you this failed you. Or perhaps you did not want to pay attention when those lessons were being given. I'm just saying that might have happened. I know I did. Perhaps watching too many screens as a culture has affected our ability to read and to write. Reading a lot is correlated with success and effectiveness in writing. But we can't fix any of those failures in the past. We can't turn back time. There's a Japanese proverb that says, fix the problem and not the blame. So that's what I'm going to focus on, to help you write better in spite of where we are in life, okay? I'm 168 years old, and I'm still learning how to write, okay? I'm still learning that I need to cut things down. I need to get to the point a lot quicker. To communicate clearly the needs of the business to the IT folks, and the activities and the possibilities that IT can do realistically to the business. And because both groups are frustrated with the folks on the other side of that relationship, I'm like a divorce lawyer or like a marriage counselor or something like that. And it's really been helpful. A lot of that is in writing. If you don't learn to be an effective writer, it will, or find the tools to help you. All right, it's going to hurt your career, and career is money, and money is success, and that's the corner office. That's what we all aspire to, and simple as that. So, brevity, clarity, economy. Okay. Someone said to speak well, you need to do three things: be brief, be interesting, be seated. And there's a good rule that should be paralleled in the writing endeavor. I wish that college assignments didn't say write at least 2,000 words on this. I wish there was a way we could say, okay, you got to cover all the stuff in the Arch Assurance case. You can't skip over the ADM. Well, you're going to do the ADM, it's going to be great. Like some bosses talk about. But no, you have to deal with those things. But if you could do it in 1,000 words, why should you do it in 2,000? Okay? And I don't know how you grade that without tempting people to skip stuff. Maybe you give them a checklist of things they have to talk about, but reward them for being to the point, I guess is what I'm trying to say. How to scaffold the writing assignment, okay? This is nuts and bolts of how to do well on an ICT graduate assignment. Know the content first, okay? Some of my students, not anyone in this class, but some of my students back in the long ago, like last term, they would start writing the paper, not having read the material, not having downloaded, just kind of trying to figure it all out as they went along. Not good. Invest the time. Sometimes you only have 10 hours, and you could only spend 2 hours in the reading assignment. Okay, I understand that. You've got to budget the time, but you can't spend 0, all right? You can't hunt and gather, as it were, okay? You have to prepare. Identify all the deliverables for the assignment, okay? That is so key. There's rarely just one. And this is what's frustrating, because we see something, we say, oh, okay, I got to write this paper. Okay, well, I'm writing. Okay, yeah, I covered it. And then the next paragraph has 4 things that you must do. And oops, you forgot. And it's a common mistake to forget to do all the things in the assignment. I'm going to show you a very easy way to make sure that you don't miss this. It's called a scaffolding or a checklist. Know the requirements for every you call ICT paper. Every one of them will have certain characteristics that you must meet. Okay? And remember, this is my patented catchphrase. The rubric is your friend. It's not your enemy. No one looks at the rubric. You have a friend who loves you and cares for you, and you don't even spend time with him. You lowlife. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, this is your friend. This rubric was written so that if there was ever a fight between you and a professor about what you needed to do to get an A, you could put it in writing right here. It's kind of like a contract in a sense. You do this, you do it in a great way, you do it in an average way, you do it in a substandard way. That's how the grade's calculated. And this is how much percent is on there. So the rubric is your friend. Let's talk about some of these real briefly here. Why not use an example that's near and dear to our heart? The Archie Assurance case study. Oh, I don't know, let's pick part 2. Does that sound like a good part to look at this week? Okay. All right, so this is the Business Technology and Information Systems layer, and this is part of the first major paper. Part 2 is the first major paper of the Archie Assurance. There are 5 parts just to make you really excited, okay? First part was kind of warming up, getting the flow and the outlines and all those things. But this is now we're getting into the meat of the assignment. Identify all the assignment descriptions. Descriptions, plural. Because sometimes there'll be a requirement in one section, and what happens? There's another section, and there's another requirement. So one requirement and one requirement makes one requirement. Just do the one you want. No, you got 2. Okay, so I'm being a little facetious here, but you're going to find some of these assignments have 4, 5, and 6 things that you need to do. And it's easy to get faked out, especially when you're tired. 11 o'clock at night on Sunday is not the time to say, I've done enough. If you don't have, I know all of us have done that, but I think it's important to have a checklist to keep everybody honest, okay? So you compile all the things you have to do as separate requirements on a bulleted list. I even use, you know how to change bullets from bullets to check boxes? You can do that in Word or PowerPoint or whatever. And then that becomes your outline, all right? I've never had a professor say, no, this is a terrible outline. You did all the things you were required to do in the order that I gave them to you. You know, if he or she does, then it's their fault, because listen, pal, it's your assignment. I did exactly what you said. You want to step outside? No, don't say that. Okay, we don't solve our problems that way. But come on, no professor. In fact, they will respect you because you are ticking every one of those things off in order. And generally speaking, there's a reason that the order is there. We're talking about the ADM. Yeah, there's a whole order as you go around the clock for TOGAF. Okay, so keep that in mind. Here's the example. Here's the assignment. This week you'll add an analysis of the inputs and outputs of the technology layer, the information systems layer of the ADM, and explain those that are relevant to Archie Assurance. This will culminate in a paper of your 4 weeks of study and analysis. Please refer to the Deliverables section below for details. This says you're going to add an analysis of the inputs and the outputs from various layers. You're going to write a paper based on 4 weeks of your interacting with this material. And you have spent at least 4 weeks doing that. You were reading Archie Mate and TOGAF, my favorite books. You ever heard of Moby Dick and Huckleberry Finn? Garbage compared to TOGAF and Archie Mate. All right, no, not really. But anyway, but you got to distill all this information into a very clear set of activities in the ADM, okay? So look at the deliverables section for more details. Okay, here's all the deliverables. Week 6, the first major report. In other words, part 1 was just kind of warming up in week 4. We'll summarize your 4 weeks of study and analysis, okay? Using all your readings, notes, enterprise architectural frameworks, in other words, TOGAF 9.2, modeling tools, Archie Mate 3.1, prepare a report with the following deliverables. Okay, get your highlighter out. Analyze Archie Assurance's planned approach for digital transformation. Discuss the required changes at each level of the framework. Explain how Archie and Archie Mate can be of assistance in planning, okay? Or explain how worthless they are because nobody in the business understands all these cool little lines and paragraphs and arrows. Okay? If you want to say that, say it. Okay? Argue it. No one understands this. This is like speaking Farsi to a bunch of people from Alabama. I mean, it's not going to work. All right? So don't even think about it. Is there a way maybe that you use it in the IT department and you make sure that you're covering the aspects of these relationships with these stakeholders? Sure. Does Archimate do that? In some really cool ways. But if you got 3 months to get this done, I suggest you might want to be less complex and more on the clarity side of things. Okay? Position what the role of enterprise architecture and your role, or the enterprise architect's role in the process of this. What are the inputs into defining the baseline and the target? That was the discussion last week, right? What are the outputs of the two architectures? How are the outputs of these two architectures used? Wow. If I had a diagram that had the inputs and the outputs of the whole TOGAF, wouldn't that be cool? Right? Hold that thought. All right. And then your paper should have an independent entity from the Arch Assurance case study. It should be an independent entity. You don't have to build it onto part one. But keep in mind, the last assignment is taking part 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, putting them all together as a summative example of what you can do as a writer and as an enterprise architect. So it's what's called a portfolio assignment. So it's important that way. So here are all the things that are required. Haven't changed a single word, but here are all the things you have to do. So I've highlighted them all. Then I chunk them into deliverables. And here they are. Nothing magic about this, although it seems like magic. Whoa. Here it is, there it is, there it is. Wow. Okay, this is not that deep though. Okay, Professor Bauer is not that brilliant. But you just chunk it into, independent tasks that are in sequence. And then you write, this is going to be 9 different sections. An introduction and a conclusion, and we're there. Okay? And step 1 is also the requirements of every UCall assignment. This is what you always have to do. Usually you'll get a word length. Okay? 750 and 1,000. That's kind of the instructional designer and the professor say, how long should this be? Is it 5,000? Is it 50? Is it 150? And something that is a good number. But I'd love to see an incentive if you could get it done in 100 words and not 300, or 1,000 words and not 5,000. But we'll see. There's the UCall format and style, and the Turabian author date sequence. We have some more links coming up. The rubric is your friend. Now, this rubric has 6 different variables that are 100 points. Okay. Now, it really helps if you can actually read the rubric. Okay. So, I always look at the criteria, which is on the far left, and then the weighting on the far right. And if you add up what is content, what is structure and organization, and what is style and grammar and UCall, you see it's 55% on the content side, structuring it 35%, and then 10% on, on how to make sure that it's written well, and typos and style and the right fonts and all that kind of stuff. Now, which of these numbers can you afford to just not care about? 0, okay? Well, style's not that important. I don't believe style's important, right? And after all, it's my belief, so this is America. We can believe anything. Guess what? The professor and the course always win, all right? So if you don't care about style, style's going to care about you, all right? So just keep that in mind. That's a grade. That's a difference between an A plus and barely an A. That's a grade level, 10% of your grade. None of us can afford that. All right, so keep that in mind. So here's what the writing outline looks like, okay? And all the different things that you're going to write on this paper. This is a lot to write on. Your paragraphs should be really tight, okay? And so we're going to talk about how to use structured writing conventions. Your first paragraph is the introduction, your thesis, which is the main idea, and your plan step. We're going to look through the ADM process, inputs and outputs, as reflective of the changes in the transformation of these three companies into a merged Arch Assurance. That sounds like that's what I'm going to do. So here's the idea, and here's what we're going to do. And then you write what I call C paragraphs, S-E-E. Statement, what is your idea that you want to get across in this paragraph? We're going to talk about the architectural dimension of this, the information architecture. By that we mean da-da-da-da-da, okay? So the statement, then you explain it. You use a definition, or you cite the TOGAF spec source or something like that. Clarify anything that's technical and not easily understood. Then you provide an example. For example, the processing of insurance applications is going to be simplified by using a similar process for all the three merged companies. And by simplification of that record and removing redundancies, we're going to save 20 to 30% of cost in creating and selling one policy. Wow. You told me a statement, you explained it, you gave me an example. Now let's talk about the next paragraph, C paragraphs. Now sometimes you'll need more, you'll need a longer explanation, you'll need, the first writing assignment you needed three examples, one from a government, one from a nonprofit, one from a for-profit. Okay, so 3 examples of this. And some of you used really good ones, okay? The conclusion is always a restatement of the thesis. We have shown in this paper that, or this effort involving the ADM at the Arch Assurance merged entities included these activities and resulted in a successful process because they took into account all of the required elements of this transition. All right, why is this valuable? Okay, the company will save money, we'll get it done quicker, we're not leaving, oh, what about this on the table, and forgetting things that we need to remember. Okay, structured writing conventions. Writing, everybody can write a term paper if you learn to write paragraphs. Paragraphs are the building blocks of your structure. Okay, and your structure comes from the assignment. Okay, all of these things fit together. Okay, now let's talk about editing. Okay, because we love that. As much fun as it is to write the paper, it's like a one date on Match.com. You never want to see that thing again, right? You decided 10 minutes into this coffee at Starbucks, no, I don't want to have this guy, I don't want to be on a second date, I don't even want to pay for the coffee, I just want to get out of here, and editing is what often gets short shrift in the improvement process, okay? And so let's talk about editing. We're gonna talk about taking a good paper and making it great, or taking an average paper and letting it get into the lousy category by not paying attention to it. All right, a couple of tools that will be helpful. Grammarly, how many of you know Grammarly? Okay, some of you do, some of you don't, some of you don't need it. Okay, and I'm not saying you do need it or you don't need it. If you have a problem with grammar, if your professor just gives a lot of, no, this should be this, that's plural, this is singular, you don't write in the passive voice, you don't write in the second person, you should write in the third person, and you're like, whoa, 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 I don't remember any of that stuff. That's okay. You can't go back, and because we're videotaping this, I really should sing the song from Cher, if I could turn back time, and I dedicate this to Cher. No, I don't. You can't turn back time, but the tools and the software are getting better and better and better. A few months ago, Microsoft launched its own editor as a direct competitor to this new entrant, Grammarly. So you're going to find better and more effective tools to help your grammar. Okay, I don't like to bike more than 20 miles. So you know what the solution is? Electric bike, okay? And I get 50 miles on that, all right? So the software tools can help you. There's one called thesaurus.com if you have a problem with a particular word that's not quite the word that you want. Sometimes the best thing is a second pair of eyes. If you have relatives or friends who can read over your work, they might catch some things you missed and can tell you if something's amiss. Word can introduce a lot of errors when you go to save it. Okay, you have all the forms and all the images and all the page breaks and everything perfect, and then you post it, and then Professor Bauer opens it and it looks like blank pages and stuff aligned way off and justified left and right and all this kind of stuff. Like, what happened? What happened is Microsoft's code base, which is bloated and terrible and nasty. And so if you end up, first of all, you got to check it to make sure that what you wanted it to do is done. The only way you can do that is after you post it on Canvas, take a look at it. And we never do that, do we? Because we've done our bit. We trust everyone else. Why do you trust technology? Okay? It will break your heart every time. Let me recommend Save as PDF, particularly when you get into different foreign languages, different font sets, different diagrams and spacing and all those sorts of things that need to be right. More often than not, a PDF of a good Word document will retain all those characteristics. But always check the work, okay? Edit your own writing, okay? Understand that what you write first is a draft. Does anyone major in mathematics in high school or college? Know the formula? RD equals FC?
Nice.
RD equals FC. F equals MA is force equals mass times acceleration, right? Particle physics, right? So RD equals FC. Rough draft equals final copy, right? And we've been writing our paper. Yeah, I've done that all the time, right? So here's where rough draft means rough draft, okay? And you have to get into the habit of spending at least a third to a half of the time you took to write it in editing it, okay? Watch out for overuse of jargon, business terms. Digital transformation is my favorite empty word, okay? Oh yeah, let's be transformed. Well, come on, all right? What are we gonna do? Cliches. Avoid cliches like the plague, as the book says, all right? Just don't use it. Passive voice. In other words of saying, John walked down the street. You say something like, the street was walked on by John. Sometimes it might, or the book was read by 43 people in the class. You can say 43 people read the book. It's active. The subject performs the action in the sentence. Always write in the active voice, unless you're a press secretary for the United States President. And then you learn to say, well, mistakes were made. No one ever says, I'm sorry, I blew it, we messed up, we shouldn't have, they say, well, some mistakes were made, some low-level, bureaucrat or whatever, right? Give your work some space. Once you write it, take a walk. Have a good night's sleep. Wake up the next day. Wash your head. Do coffee, whatever caffeine delivery system you need. But look at it, not 5 minutes later, but look at it when you've had your mind a chance to separate a bit from that experience. Give it some space. Cut, cut, cut. That is the most important thing. My wife is a paralegal, and her responsibility is to take all these lawyers who get paid by the hour and write tons of stuff to condense them into 1 or 2 pages, because you want the client to be able to understand them. You want the judge to not be wasting his time, and that is super important. Spend the most time on the beginning, okay? The first paragraph, you either put them to sleep or you've got something. Pay attention to structure. Don't lose that. Keep your structure. Lay it all out and then write that way. And then at the end, you've done everything you need to do. All right. Use all the resources you can. Okay. What does the assignment require? Okay, just to summarize. What's the structure? How do I get my grammar in the right place? Okay, Grammarly can help. It's not perfect, but it helps a lot. The DU style guide, the ICT style guide, and the UCall style. It's how we roll at DU. You can't fight it. Okay, you may want to, but then you go to work, and guess what? Your company has a style guide, and then you become the president. And your marketing people say, sir, we don't use that font. We don't use pink unicorns in our logo. Sir, this is kind of, now, they'll call you sir because you own the company. And you can fire them or you can listen to them, all right? So keep that in mind. So here's the Microsoft Word Editor, which is new, and here's Grammarly. It's a free browser plugin. So if you have Chrome, if you have the new Microsoft Edge browser, etc. Or you can get an academic version, or you can buy the fully licensed software. If you teach English as a college professor, you get a free copy. I wish I could get you guys a copy. I said, why don't you sponsor the DU ICT program, and let's track how their English writing improves over time. We can write a paper on it. They're thinking about next week's numbers, so it's not going to happen there, right? You may not have good grammar or style, so you got to do something about it. Waiting for that to change is not, hope is not a strategy in that respect, okay? The versions are free, gives you spelling, grammar, punctuation. I would recommend just using free Grammarly. Why? Number one, it's free, okay? Number two, that's where a lot of our problems are, right there. If we fix those, that could be 70–80% of our problems. Premium does things like your style and your tone and your, it'll detect plagiarism, but we have Turnitin and word choice, and if you want to make it formal or those sorts of things, but it's not worth it. There are different apps. There's a Grammarly app for Windows, the plugin for Chrome or iPhone or iPad, and you can also have it on your phone at Android, okay? All right, the last thing we'll talk about, okay? These are on the instructor welcome that were put on today for this class, and I believe they will be very helpful. They are not long, they are not tedious, and they are helpful. Student Guide to Writing Papers, 5th edition. This book sells for $7 on Amazon. It's written by Kate Turabian. You may remember that name. She authored the Turabian College Style Guide, which got bought out by Chicago Manual, which got bought out by, they got all these mergers and things like that. We've included the first chapter for free. So you can download the free chapter that tells you about how to write for college. It's well worth the investment in your career. This book called The Elements of Style. I have the second edition of a book that's in the 10th edition, I think. It is $1.65. This was printed by Gutenberg. Okay, that's how old this book was. Okay, I read it in the 1500s. All right, I was in high school at that point. Yeah, it is 75 pages, and most of the grammatical errors that you make are talked about right here. I read this book once a year because I only have 3 brain cells, and the latency on the storage part of my brain is degrading over time. So someone gave me the illustrated version. This was $12, okay? And this was, I think, the 4th edition or something like that. It's a great book on how to write, okay? If you say, hey, I want to go more, I want to do better, I know this is something I need to work on, okay? That's there. Okay, so keep that in mind. And then finally, the Chicago Manual of Style online. These are quick links, okay? 1 or 2 pages, okay? But what I shared earlier is, this is the word template for the UCall style guide, okay? It's not, here we go. All right, this is a blank file for how to write, okay? You just,
Can you send that to us? Can you send that file to us?
Oh yeah,
I would like that.
the link is on here,
I
okay?
think you already did.
All right, so look at this. Here's the title page. Here's your abstract page. Here's your last name and the 2 Roman numerals, because your abstract has Roman numerals, right? And you just put your last name. Now, that's a lot of pressure. Do you remember your last name? Okay, all right, okay. All right, good, we're on our way. Ah! Eureka! This is the mother lode, isn't it? The table of contents. The one that we rip our hair out every time. We have that last number on the last page and it won't align with all the other ones, so we just leave it there because no one's going to notice that. But evil Professor Bauer always sees that. I live for that, okay? No, I really don't. But no, you gotta fix it. All right, so what you need to do here, you even have where it says methods, you have an indent. So ADM, activities. And how many of those do we have? 4 or 5. We put those right there on the indent and they're all lined up and they're beautiful. Okay? And you don't have to waste any time. Just type over it. Take this template and go save as, Archie Assurance Part 2, draft, and rock and roll. Okay? And here's the actual paper. Introduction, topics, last name. There's that last name again. All right? And then at the very end, references. Okay? All right, so it's all done for you. Okay? I told you there would be some practical things in this preparation. So as we close, these are all on the instructor welcome, and I just did a screen grab. Canvas, course home, instructor welcome, writing and communication resources, and you'll see student's guide, elements of style, and then the links, and then the template for the UCall. At the very end, there it is, and knock yourself out. So that's the UCall. You get all these great pages. All you have to do is open it up, save it as, and rock and roll. All right, I mentioned the 2 books that I thought were really helpful, Elements of Style, and I'll pass these around later. And that's the new look of the new edition, and then the Turabian's guide as well. Okay, keep in mind that the better communicator will always win. They'll get the better grade, they'll get the better job, they'll get the better house. That's the way it works. And your job is to be a good communicator. Thank you for your time.